And let's go back to these configurations now. We were talking about 4-track machines, and then we discussed Les Paul's innovation of coming up with a concept of being able to record individual tracks separately from each other. As a result of that, it really started putting pressure on tape manufacturers to make tape and tape machines that could handle more and more tracks. So we wound up with tape machines that ran a 1-inch tape. They would have tape heads that could support usually 8, sometimes 16, but a lot of times just 4 tracks. So 4, 8, and 16 tracks on a 1-inch tape machine. Let's talk about what you could do with that real quick. If we had a 16-track machine and we were recording a rhythm section, maybe a country tune, how could we lay out the drums and the rest of the instruments so that we could utilize these 16 tracks on a 1-inch tape? One of the things that we could do would be to start to utilize these individual tracks for individual elements. So for example, a drum kit really consists of multiple drums. So we could record these drums onto their own tracks. That way, if the snare drum was too loud, we could turn it down. Or if the cymbals were too loud, we could turn them down. Okay, so we would do this by assigning them to separate tracks. So track 1, maybe we have the kick drum. Maybe channel 2, we have the snare. Channel 3, the hi-hat. Channel 4 and 5, we do stereo toms. And then 6 and 7, we do stereo overheads. Now, after that, we can do bass. There's always lots of guitars, so let's do a left acoustic guitar using this stacking technology that we discussed. So a left and right acoustic guitar, and then we need at least 3 tracks for electric guitars. Okay, so there's those 3 tracks. And then we're going to have a lead vocal, and then we're going to have background vocals. So you can see really rapidly that you can run out of tracks. Now you could sum things down a little further, but obviously the more things you have spread across more tracks, the more individual control you have over them. So that's something that you want. So, you know, if you take the toms and the overheads and put them on the same tracks, and then you find that the toms are too loud, you can't undo that. So you would like to have all these things on their own tracks. Each electric guitar should be on its own track, each acoustic guitar, the bass, each vocal part on its own track. So more and more pressure for manufacturers to come up with larger and larger machines. The standard format that was used for decades from the late 60s, early 70s, well, probably a little later than that, mid-70s up until even present day, was a 2-inch tape machine. Now these 2-inch tape machines had a number of configurations or head stacks. Most of them could record 16, 24, and some of them 32 tracks. The most common was 24-track 2-inch tape. Okay, 24 tracks. And that was the standard for 30, 40 years. There were a few companies that did make, actually I think just one, Otari made a 32-track 2-inch tape head stack. That was not real common, but there were a few of those commercially that were made. 24 is by far the most common. In the late 80s, early 90s, I believe, digital recording started catching on, and one of the first large format commercially available digital recording machines was a Sony. And I think, if I remember right, there were 2 models. I could be wrong, a 3332 and a 3348, but maybe I'm wrong on that. As I said before, they were made by Sony. 33, 32, 33, 48, I think. And that was a 32-track and a 48-track configuration. Again, I'm not sure if that's right. I don't know if they did a 32 or not, kind of guessing. Here's a picture of the Sony. See, it looks very much like a standard tape machine from the analog era, except it was a very narrow, it was like 3/4 or 1-inch tape on that, and you could get up to 48 tracks on that one small piece of tape. The downside to those 3324s or 3348s is that they were extremely expensive, about $90,000. Whereas a standard analog 2-inch machine was anywhere between maybe 15 and 30,000 for a really nice high-end machine. So quite a bit more money just to be able to record digital. The next advancement came when a company called Alesis came up with a concept for a digital machine. They called it the ADAT. And the ADAT was unique in that it had 8 tracks of digital recording, and it would record those on a VHS videotape. And each machine was an 8-track machine and about as big as an old video VHS machine. And you could stack these together like this on top of each other, and you could sync them together. So you could have 8 tracks here, 8 tracks here. So you could have 3 of these machines or more synced together to come up with your 24 tracks, and the price per unit was roughly $2,500. So for $10,000, you could have 32 tracks of digital, as opposed to $90,000 for 32 or 48 with the Sony. That's why it was so innovative, is because it was so cheap. Here is a picture of the Alesis ADAT. You can see here's where the tape is inserted. Here's where you can select what tracks to record. Here's your transport controls, and your metering is right here. Here is a picture of a stack of ADATs. You can see there's 5 machines, 2 old models and 3 new model machines stacked together. So that was the ADAT. Those were very popular for 5, 8 years, something like that. And then gradually, as people got tired of trying to find all the tapes for a particular recording, they started using more and more hard drives. Okay, and to use the hard drives, essentially then they would use software-based mixers, and now we call them DAWs, or digital audio workstations. And a DAW then can record all of your songs or all of your material for your songs onto a hard drive. And you say, well, what's the advantage of that? Well, one of the advantages is that they're linear. Or that they're non-linear, I'm sorry. These tape machines, analog and or digital tape machines, were linear. You had to get to a certain spot on the tape by rolling through the tape. A hard drive, you can just say, I want to go to this location, and it immediately goes there. So immediate access to your data. Also, one of the advantages with a hard drive is that they're a lot less money. A 2-inch tape costs anywhere from $100 to $150 per reel. So on a standard CD, you could easily spend $300 just in tape. I don't know how much the digital tapes were. The ADAT tapes were not too much money. But if you had a 32-track recording, you'd have 3 ADAT tapes. Because remember, 8 channels apiece. So you could rack up a bill with ADAT tapes. Hard drives are a lot less money. With a hard drive, you could buy, say, a 1 terabyte drive, and it may cost you $120. But you could put 30 to maybe 40 songs on that hard drive. So really, your storage expense is maybe 20, 30 bucks for a whole project. So a lot less money. Thanks for watching this tutorial on multi-track recording. Hopefully you've learned something new, or that this tutorial has served as a good review for you. Before we go, I thought it would be interesting for you to see a 2-inch machine in action, so following my comments is a brief YouTube video of an Atari 2-inch machine. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in class.